Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone. This is Frank DiMora, connecting the dots between Bible prophecy and current events. Today is May the 30th, 2014. If you just found my YouTube channel and you would like to get my book, all you have to do is when you get to my website, you'll see the front and the back cover of my book, and right below it at my website, which you'll see right here, will be a link, and just click the link and you can download the documentary today. It's taken almost 38 years of my life to put this information together for you, and you can get it for free, and it's very, very current. So let's move on to what the Lord is showing us from His Word. Of course, He did tell us in the Scriptures to keep on the watch. He said this many times, and if He took the time out to repeat it, then we should really observe what He said and follow the lead of our Messiah if you believe in the Messiah. And I'm hoping that if you don't believe in the Messiah, that after you see this information, you will begin to understand that He is the true Messiah. And of course, what you're going to see here today is just a glimpse of the complete picture. And if you want the complete picture of all of the signs that are taking place in one generation, which is our generation, and that's what the Lord told us what was going to happen, then download my book today for free. Now, in my book, I give you page after page of incidences where bees, mass bee die-offs, are taking place. Now, of course, this is very, very important. And when you understand Bible prophecy, you know what's going to happen in the future. So take a look at what the Lord revealed to us in Revelation. And this is coming from Revelation chapter 6, verse 5 and 6. When He opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine." So, on a complete study of this, you'll see that Jesus talked about you'll see this in the New Testament, obviously. Then Jesus gave a story about people who were going into the field to work and how they were paid the denarius. Of course, they worked all day long and they all got the same wages. It didn't matter whether they went in for 8 hours or the last people who came in to work only worked an hour. They got the same money. And so we know through this story, and we know from Revelation, that people are going to be working all day long for one small meal. Just enough to supply the needs for one person for one meal only. So if you have a family, forget it, because you're not going to have enough food to give out. And this is going to be something that the world will never see again. This is what Jesus said. When these things take place, the world has never seen what we're going to go through. And so let's look at it this way. Bees pollinate the crops. And I've been warning that you're going to see more news concerning the mass bee die-off, and that's exactly what we're seeing, and it's happening at an accelerated rate. So let me just give you an example of this, and again, you can see all this information in my book today for free, but there is a news broadcast that came out today in these concerns about the mass bee die-offs, and I'm just going to play the news for you.
North Carolina's agricultural industry brings into the state every year.
Yeah, but the key component, I guess you could call it, pollinating the state's crops is dying off slowly. Meteorologist Vicki Graff found out what may be threatening bees in Charlotte and what local activists are doing to protect them.
This is a crisis situation where we're losing bees at an alarming rate.
And we're looking at true food security issue here.
Eyewitness News talked to Levy Schroeder, who is Executive Director of Toxic Free North Carolina. Toxic Free North Carolina plans to rally outside the Lowe's shareholder meeting tomorrow, where they will demand Lowe's stop selling a harmful pesticide known as neonic. This pesticide is believed to be part of the reason why the bee population is dying.
1 in 3 bites of food of produce that you buy in the grocery store that you put on your plate is bee dependent.
Toxic Free North Carolina believes if the bees die, it could.
Now, I hope you understood what she's saying here. A mass food shortage. And essentially, that's exactly what Jesus shows us in the book of Revelation.
These are are attracted to plants like this milkweed here, which is where they enjoy the sweet nectar, which is where they enjoy the sweet nectar, and that's also where they start to release pollen, which helps the plant grow, and then they take that pollen back to the hive, which is where they are able to grow honey.
When the bees eat from plants such as corn, cucumbers, and peaches, if they are sprayed with neonic, it causes a harmful reaction which slowly kills them. Channel 9 contacted Lowe's. They released a statement saying, bee health is a concern, and the loss of bees and other pollinators is very complex. Lowe's says it expects all vendors to abide by EPA guidelines, and it offers a wide selection of organic pest control products for customers who wish to naturally control pests in their home and landscape. Meteorologist Vicki Graff.
All right, so let me stop it there, because essentially what you heard from Lowe's, in my opinion, is that the products that are on the shelves right now are sufficient because they are abiding by the owners of these companies who are selling them. So they believe that it's safe. Well, of course, if you don't change anything, and this is the problem, then the bee die-offs will continue. And this is only, I believe, is only going to be part and parcel for the complete picture of what happens to our crops during the revelation. And we're already in the birth pangs leading to the revelation. And there's a lot of different reasons why the crops are dying. The insects, the intense heat, the massive flooding, the wars where people can't go in and plant and then harvest their crops. So there's a lot of reasons. But a major part of food destruction would be the bees keep dying off in mass numbers. So again, I'm going to warn you, you're going to see other information about the bee population dying off, like I have been doing for a long time. Just be aware of these things so that when you see them on the news and you spot it, you'll think, oh yeah, I guess Frank was pointing out something about Revelation and maybe I should pay attention to this. At least I'm hoping for that. So let's move on. Now this next section here I want to talk to you about, again, we're into the book of Revelation here. You can see this in Revelation chapter 13 verse 16. And this is talking about the Antichrist coming, and he's going to issue a mark on everybody. At least he's going to try to give it to everybody. What we know is the time is coming where a man who is a real man, you see this right here when the Lord said this man is going to try to force everybody to receive a mark. And this mark could only have come to pass during a generation who has increased in knowledge. No question about it. And this is why you'll see the little pictures that I put under here underneath this article, the brain and then people traveling, the new form of methods of traveling people are doing, because this is part of prophecy, as you're going to see below as I continue. So knowing that the mark is coming, knowing that this generation is the only generation who has the technology to be able to do something like this, at the same time, and all the prophecies are coming to pass. Very, very important information to keep your eyes on. There's a lot going on that are using these chips, using technologies. And of course, Obama is using part of this technology now, if you will, in the military. As you see from the headline here, Obama's military begins implanting cybernetic microchips in soldiers' brains to treat PTSD. And so we have the increase of knowledge in the last days joining together with another prophecy about the marking that will be issued by the Antichrist, and we know that these will probably be embedded chips in the skin, because the Lord tells us in the right hand or in the forehead. So don't be surprised that this technology won't be used in other parts of the body as well. So let me go over to the article. This is the article title, and let's go over it. Of course, they do have the same scripture that I put up here in Revelation chapter 13. So let's see what it says. It says, Obamacare made plenty of provision for the implantable devices, and not just for pacemakers, but until now, what would be coming next was an unknown entity. Now we know. Have you been noticing that over the past few years, military diagnosis of PTSD has skyrocketed? Do you know why that is? So they can justify using a U.S. soldier as a guinea pig for launching microchip implants in humans, and under the guise of treating the all-covering diagnosis of PTSD. The Obama administration has instructed the Pentagon to begin the process of microchipping the brains of soldiers. Watch for diagnosis of PTSD to increase 1,000% past the current all-time high to justify mass microchipping. Very, very possible. Now, prediction. After the American public has accepted this as a standard medical treatment, microchipping of all Americans for any reason will be as standard as taking your dog to the vet to be chipped. The below article from Defense One clearly states that this technology will be applied to millions of Americans. Read it for yourself and see. And of course, I'm going to have this link at my site so that you can see it. And it gives a bunch of information which I'm not going to cover right now, and I'm hoping that you'll get interested to go to my site and read the rest of it. But Obama, under the Obama administration, this is the type of thing that they're doing, microchipping. And of course, this news, for anybody who knows Bible prophecy, shouldn't come as a surprise, because we know our generation is the only generation who would be able to do anything like this. So let me go down further here, because I want to show you something else. There's a video that came with this article, very, very good video. And it's something that I have given to you before. Not this particular video, but the information surrounding the chips. And so I want to present this. So when you go to the website, my website, and you click this link, you'll come to a movie. Let me show you. Now here's a video that talks about being chipped. It's very interesting. I'm just going to play it.
Hey, I'm King of Phillips, and this is Google Current. Searches are up for Baja Beach Club this week, a nightclub in Barcelona. Now, the place looks like a good time, but people all over the world don't start searching for a nightclub unless it's doing something freaky. And it is. The club began injecting ID chips into its VIP guests 2 years ago. Price-sized chips allow VIPs to skip the whole velvet rope routine, get into the swanky VIP areas, and charge drinks automatically. Sort of like starting a tab in your arm. This week, a U.S. company called CityWatcher.com adopted the same technology and implanted chips into a few employees, eliminating the need for company IDs or access cards. But some folks are worried that CityWatcher has bigger plans for the chips. That's because the company makes its money setting up camera systems for cities, trying to keep an eye on crime-ridden areas. An obvious next step for a surveillance company would be virtual tracking, which has some people freaked out. People like Catherine Albrecht, founder and director of Caspian, Consumers Against Supermarket Privacy Invasion and Numbering. That's the group that took on Walmart a little while back when they first switched to radio frequency chips to track packages. Albrecht published the book Spy Chips, started a website of the same name, and even put out this eye-catching t-shirt. Needless to say, she's not too stoked on the possibility of our government or other private agencies spying on us through our consumer products or chips embedded in our skin. Oh, and FYI, the website says that if you're trying to disable an RFID chip, a microwave will work, but it's not recommended because it can start a fire. And also, don't try to drown the chip. Water doesn't work, and neither do magnets. Of course, the companies manufacturing the chips, like the VeryChip Corporation, maintain that their goal is to improve our lives. VeryChip's website focuses on health concerns and safety that shows how their products prevent Alzheimer's patients from wandering off or babies being delivered to the wrong mothers. But I guess in the end, what really counts, though, is if the thing can get me in with the VIP crowd at the hot Spanish disco. Then I'm all for it. Just put those drinks on my arm. Keep searching. Google Current. We'll be back in 30.
All right, so you just got through seeing in nightclubs, they're already chipping people. I have this in my live presentations. They're chipping them in the arms, just like she was talking about, and the money's deducted right from their checking account. And it's under the skin, exactly what Jesus said. Now, it may be in the arm, but in the future, when the Antichrist comes, he's going to issue that number in the right hand or in the forehead. Now, they also covered the problem about the babies being stolen. Well, this isn't the first time. And let me just show you, there was an article that came out, Pearl Hospital slammed over the stolen baby. And this is an issue that a lot of hospitals are facing, and they're leaning towards the RFID tags. Let me show you. Let me just scroll down to the important section of this. Here you'll see the safety measures suggested, and below here, one of them, consider the radio frequency identification or similar technologies for tagging babies and mothers. So what you're seeing here is events are pushing the agenda. And if it looks good, if it feels good, then take it. Even if it takes away a lot of your privacies. But we know that the one who's going to take all your privacy away at the end of the day will be the Antichrist. Now, going along with the Antichrist, obviously, he's going to have a new world order. And we've had political leaders around the world talk about the new world order that's coming. And I want to show you a little video that talks about this, because it wasn't just President Bush, the former president. Now we have Obama, we have other people. Let me just play this for you.
Vice President Joe Biden calls the newest graduates of the Air Force Academy strategic thinkers as well as warriors, and the future of the new world order.
It allows us to refocus our intelligence and military assets and resources to other parts of the world where they are needed, where we face new challenges. This is the world you are graduating into. This is what I want to talk about today with you for a few minutes. I believe we, and particularly you, your class, has an incredible window of opportunity to lead in shaping a new world order for the 21st century in a way consistent with American interest and the common interest.
During an event honoring the 223rd anniversary of Poland's constitution last night, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said we are seeing a new 21st century world order being built, and although there are conflicts and complications, there's still hope.
I think what's more hopeful, and maybe than any other time in the history of the world, is that we have more opportunities, and more possibilities, and more resources. We meet here at a moment of testing for Europe and the United States, and for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. I congratulate you on taking your place on the long gray line. But the world is changing with accelerating speed. This presents opportunity, but also new dangers. It will be your generation's task to respond to this new world.
Over the last 2 years, journalists and activists have been fighting a specific provision in the annual National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, through a lawsuit called Hedges v. Obama. It's called Section 1021B, otherwise known as the Indefinite Detention Clause, which gives the U.S. military the right to indefinitely detain U.S. citizens anywhere in the world, including right here in America.
This not only attacks your First Amendment rights, it attacks your Fifth Amendment rights, your Due Process Clause, because this gives not the U.S. government, but the U.S. military the right to detain you, and indefinitely with no due process.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Now, when I was in America, I don't often say this, but I might as well say it here tonight. My driver, who has carried all the prophetic preachers across America before me, told me, he said, every time we get to a bridge, you watch. And we went through 38 states in 2.5 weeks, and every bridge we went near, there were men working underneath it, putting in steel girders. He said, that is for the United Nations tanks that are going to come in and take over America shortly. Is everybody clear what I'm saying tonight? This goes on tape. The whole of America will be inundated with the United Nations troops. In fact, they're training now.
Heavy artillery rocked downtown Tampa today as military gunships and helicopters roared by the convention center. Now, this was all part of the annual Special Forces Operations Convention. While it wasn't a real invasion, Chris Trankman says it looked about as real as it could get.
This was different. This was a first for me. Usually no one sees what we do.
The display featured Apache helicopters speeding overhead, while bigger Black Hawk choppers carried highly trained operatives as part of a make-believe invasion.
In the distance, they must travel to the target.
The spectacle rivals any show.
It's a government conspiracy. It's a wonder why niggas can't get on their feet. We try, but we suffer defeat. Nevertheless, we still stuck in these streets, trying to compete up against the elite. Everything's so corrupted, headed for destruction. The rich could help, but they don't do nothing. So I thought I'd just say a little something. Government tell lies, they frontin'. Think about the money that they're spending on the war. People still sick and the people still poor. Hungry little kids being locked outdoor. America over there fighting for all. Plenty of solutions for white populations. I'ma tell the truth since y'all don't know. Better open your mind, take time to grow. Illuminati, population control. Plot, 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 they killing us dead. Hear us on the radio, but they won't play. They know what it is, but they too scared. FCC probably had a head, just don't care. Mama's on welfare, daddy locked up for the rest of his life. Bob Walker is the prison he is. Talking about the price is right. I'ma like to like, cause ain't no fear in me.
All right, so there you have it. You know, different presidents talking about the New World Order. And one of the things that I hope you picked up is President Obama said that this is happening with accelerating speed. And of course, the scripture that we know about in Daniel 12:4, let me go down there. It's right here. Look at what the Lord tells us. Connecting the dots. Says this in Daniel 12:4. It says, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even till the time of the end. In other words, Daniel wasn't going to understand what he was told by the Lord, but the last generation would. Look at this. And seal the book even until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. All right, so this is the prophecy being fulfilled in our generation. There was no one else who could have ever done what this society is doing. And that engulfs, if you will, the New World Order, the marching towards that system, the mark of the beast, and everything else that we're seeing being fulfilled. So let's go and see what else is happening in the news. Now, when you're talking about increased knowledge, you're talking about war, you're talking about countries taking over, I want to go over to this life science, and you'll see the new soldier, what the new soldier is going to look like. And here you go, life science, military Iron Man suit may be ready to test this summer. And this is what it's going to look like. It says the first prototypes of a high-tech suit of armor to give soldiers superhuman abilities could be ready to test this summer, according to the top military officials. The suits, which have drawn comparisons to the one worn by Marvel Comics superhero Iron Man, could be delivered to Special Operation Forces as early as June. There's a full size of this picture here. Let me show it to you. So you see here the exoskeleton. It runs all the way down from here, and it's attached all the way up. And it gives them superhuman abilities. Now, if you were in my live presentation, I'd be able to show you this a little bit better. But for now, you can go over to the website, check it for yourself. Just understand that we're seeing new inventions and we're seeing increased knowledge exponentially. And the reason for this is the generation who's been chosen by the Lord to fulfill this prophecy. Unfortunately, we're getting good things along with the bad things. Now, the good things are, for example, people are being able to hear and see by new inventions and technologies that are being hooked up to the brain. But the bad part about it is it's all leading to the road to the Antichrist, who's going to control technologies for all people around the world. All right, so moving on, just let me show you now. The Lord told us one of the other signs, combining all together here, obviously, is found in Luke 21:11, where he talks about these great earthquakes that are coming. And again, in Matthew chapter 24, when you read that chapter, you'll see that the Lord warned about the many earthquakes that are coming. And so on a regular basis, I'm just showing you the earthquakes that have taken place. But let me warn you that big earthquakes are on the way. Here are some of the ones that were just reported. You'll see this one took off again in the May 30th. That was yesterday in Chile. Now this was a 5.0, but they marked it as a strong earthquake. Now going down below, the moderate, another 5.0 earthquake in the Pacific Antarctic region, or the ridge there. That was again yesterday. And then we had a 4.5 earthquake, and you'll see this one took place in Japan. Now along with that and another prophecy here, let's take a look. In Hosea, we know that in the last days, the Lord tells us that the birds, the fish, and the animals are going to be dying. And again, in my book, you're going to see a host of information, page after page of this information, and it's happening almost on every single day. And so the birds, the fish, and the animals are dying, and we've already seen information about the bees, so knowing that it's going to have an effect on the food. So let's take a look at what we have here today. This May 29th, 2014, fish kill found in Oklahoma. Let me just play it for you.
A popular Love County fishing spot along the Red River has recently become a fish graveyard and is now being investigated.
Lauren Smith brings us the story live from our Ardmore studio. Lauren?
Scott and Maureen, locals who frequent the area say they were shocked when they saw dead fish lining Tex Ferry this past weekend. With this week's rain, many of them have been washed even further down the river, and now the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation is investigating.
It's a sad sight.
Chad McMillan says he's been fishing at Tex Ferry along the Red River for close to 20 years. But this past weekend, he saw something that he's never seen before. Hundreds of dead fish. He thinks the drought could be to blame.
Lack of rain, we get a little water, it goes into the lake, try to fill the lake back up.
The Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, Department of Environmental Quality are down there investigating it today. So it'll be a while before we know what happened, if we ever learn what happened.
Wildlife and Fisheries consultant Mike Porter with the Noble Foundation says any theories about the cause are just speculation.
Cyanobacteria, maybe something was dumped to the river, we don't know. We have no idea.
And Porter says this isn't the first fish kill investigation along the Red River in recent years.
There's been several organizations look in depth at that, and nobody has been able to figure out really what caused it. So there's some speculation. But I hate to even mention that because it's just that. It's just speculation.
He explains that any possible toxins that might have killed the fish may dissipate very quickly, making the investigation difficult. But he says there are a few possible and common causes.
Dissolved oxygen, cyanobacteria cause toxins, and then man-made pollutants occasionally getting in the water. Those are the three main causes.
McMillan says for now he'll have to take his fishing to another location.
Yeah, it's a regular spot now. We pretty much stick to the lake.
And we'll keep you updated on any further information we get from the Department of Wildlife and their
All
investigation.
right,
live from the Ardmore.
So that's that. Let me go over to another one. Now keep in mind, when you read my book, you're going to see that this has become a common occurrence, and the situation as far as understanding is left a mystery in most of these cases. Now they do know some of the reasons why, and the intense heat from the sun is warming up the water in many of these areas, and the oxygen is being depleted, and obviously no oxygen in the water, the fish die. Bottom line here is this. God said to look for it. We are seeing it happen. Now here's another one from yesterday, May the 29th, 2014. Thousands of dead fish wash ashore, alarming the residents in Port Credit. Now, when you're talking about diseases, I'm not just talking about diseases with birds, fish, and animals, but we do know that the Lord said pestilence would be coming in the last days as part of the last day signs and the birth pangs. You'll see that in Matthew 24:7. And the breaking news now, I want you to take a look at this because this is really interesting. Fears for antibiotic apocalypse grow. All right, so let's take a look at the article. The biggest threat to human health today isn't the global warming, says a group of eminent scientists. It is the resistance to antibiotics. The situation, which has been described as apocalyptic, is so desperate that the global response, familiar to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, is urgently needed, said experts gathered at the Royal Society in London. Now, the World Health Organization is considering a global action plan to fight the problem. At least 2 million Americans a year are infected with drug-resistant bugs, and 23,000 die as a direct result. Even more die from other illnesses that were made worse by the infections that cannot be treated, according to a report by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, last year. Another 5,000 die annually in Britain, where the first antimicrobials were developed a century ago. Now, Dame Sally Davis, Britain Chief Medical Officer, warned Parliament last year of an apocalyptic situation where people will die from routine operations. And of course, they're talking about infections, not being able to knock out the infections like we have been in the past years. Now, one of the main threats comes from MRSA, Bacillium-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. A recent study found that 4.6% of patients in U.S. healthcare facilities had the bug. Antibiotic resistance is not only bad news for current patients, it also allows the pathogens to spread to more victims. Jamie Farr, the head of the Wellcome Trust, and Mark Wilhouse, professor of infectious disease epidemiology at Edinburgh University, argued in Nature yesterday, the 22nd of May, that the use of antibiotics should be slashed to slow the rate in which resistance is spreading. And of course, you already know that I gave you the sign of the last days given to God by Daniel, that people were going to increase in knowledge and travel back and forth. And because we have millions of people traveling now, it's so easy to start spreading these diseases to different parts of the world. And keep in mind, this is what we see happening during the tribulation, where we're going to see, or the people who are left behind will see, the spreading of so many different diseases because of lack of antibiotics, lack of health care. I mean, you're going to be living in a society of complete breakdown. So you won't even have a medical capability of knocking out diseases like you currently have. It's going to be completely changed. But let me go on here, getting off track a little bit. It says, their proposal, a new global panel, would also work with industry to develop the treatments for infections caused by bacteria, viruses, and parasites. But it takes a decade to develop new drugs, and no new class of antibiotics has made it to the clinical use in a quarter of a century. So they're already lagging. Now, we have needed to take action against the development of antimicrobial resistance for more than 20 years, said Dr. Ferreira. Despite repeated warnings, the international response has been feeble. The more we use antibiotics, the more we stimulate resistance. The evolution of resistant strains is inevitable, but misuse of wonder drugs such as penicillin, discovered in 1929 by Sir Alexander Fleming at St. Mary's Hospital, London, have made it much worse. Many patients stop taking antibiotics when they begin to feel better before the infection has been completely killed, because the surviving bugs are likely to be the ones with at least potential resistance, and they then spread. Repeated cycles quickly lead to bugs that are immune to our drugs, and this is the major problem. Antibiotics also widely used as a growth promoter to livestock despite a European Union ban. And Britain introduced a 5-year antibiotic plan in 2013 to improve surveillance, educate medical professionals, and spread best practice. But Michael Moore of the Royal College of General Practitioners, the problem of antimicrobial resistance is analogous to global warming. You've got to have an international policy. So already we're seeing many of these reports that are coming out warning about these superbugs, not being able to take care of them. And of course, if the Lord is correct, and He has been 100% in all of His prophecies, and you'll see this if you go into my book and you read all the documentation. I mean, the Lord is correct whether you read my book or not. The things are happening. What I'm trying to do is to give you a means where you can look at all of the documentation showing that not just this particular prophecy about the warning of antibiotic apocalypse, but all of the things that the Lord talked about. So there you have it. I'm praying that you'll take my challenge and go to my book. So there you have it. That's the news for today. I'm praying that you'll tell others about what I'm doing, connecting the dots between Bible prophecy and current events, and please let them know. This is a safe channel. No one's ever going to ask you for a dime. And when you go over to my website, nobody's going to ever ask you for a dime. I give everything out for free. My live presentations are free. I'm giving you 38 years of my work absolutely free, and you can tap into that book today. The book is making its way around the world, and it's having a great effect on people who did not believe that Jesus was real or He was the Messiah. And now their minds are changing because of the documentation they're reading in the book. God bless you all.